At this time, I'd like to introduce John David Paquette, class of 1998. He's been a long-time Luverne Cardinal supporter in any activities. He's multi-talented. He's got his own band. He works in graphics, and he's been a supporter of this team and a lot of these people for a long time. So let's hear it for John Paquette.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. It really is an honor to be asked to come and speak at the assembly here. This is a really exciting day, and I can't be happier for the group that's here. Mr. Roy said I had to keep it under 10 minutes, so I'll get started. A lot of what I'm here to talk about today is hockey, but there's an awful lot in our hockey history in Luverne that sheds light on the indispensable life lessons, and I think this will resonate with everybody. And let's face it, most of what we do in sports is here to show us what we can do in life. So over the course of the last several weeks, as the Luverne boys hockey team started to grow closer and closer to accomplishing the goal that they had set out for themselves at the beginning of the season, I started to wonder how fully these young men would recognize the broad and reaching significance of their accomplishment, if they were fortunate enough to realize that goal, which they were. And for the record, that goal was to win the Class A Section 3 championship and advance to what a lot of people consider the greatest youth sporting event anywhere in the world. This story begins quite a while ago, and for that there's a lot of context and circumstances that sort of led up to that great day last week on Wednesday at Gus Davis, where they did exactly what they set out to do. As Mr. Roy mentioned, I'm John Paquette. My brother Philip and I have an older brother, Denny, or Den, as we like to call him. He's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and we were raised by our dad, David, retired dentist, and our mom, Rosemary, also a nurse like Phil. My brother Danny and I began playing hockey at the same time in 1984 when I was 5 years old and he was 9. Our dad was also a hockey referee at that time. I still remember our mom driving me to the rink for my first practice and my very first coach, Tim Medill, telling me, "John Boy, stand right here. You're going to be a winger." At that time, Luverne did not have indoor ice. In fact, very few of the nearby communities had indoor ice, and so our seasons were entirely dictated by the weather. This lack of certainty with regard to ice time instilled sort of a magical burning desire to be on the ice whenever it was a possibility. That lamp has been lit for me too for over 30 years. I still skate once a week and build a hockey rink in my backyard every year, and a lot of my best friendships have been maintained through playing hockey. Around that time in the early 80s, the varsity aged guys were the ones who made up the very first hockey teams that Luverne ever had. So it's pretty neat to have been a first-hand witness to the true infancy of our hockey program. As a young kid, this outdoor rink was an awakening. Everything that was happening in Luverne was happening down there in this little nondescript grass space north of Redbird Field. Who remembers the outdoor rink down there? Yeah. There was one full set of boards and an adjacent circular ice open skating rink, as well as an ice path that went the entire length of the east side of the rink. On winter evenings under the lights, the varsity-age junior goal team would play, and fans of every age would line the entire circumference of the rink, with the ice path on the east side almost entirely occupied by little kids like Denny and I on skates. Just the names of some of these early players were a thing of legend. I mean, Bobby Kunkel, Kirby Heck, Troy Bullis. Just listen to those names: David Van Batavia, Steve Smezzer, Corey Norman, Tim Walgrave, Thad Shane, and Wade Roberts, just to name a few. At the old rink, there was a single warming house with a partition separating the hockey dressing room from the general public or open skating area. Just outside that door leading to the hockey side, there was an office, which was basically just a shelf big enough to hold a calendar and a gray rotary style phone high on the wall, which was well out of my reach. And there was a stool there, which I remember climbing on top and using to get home every night. But it was from the hockey side of the warming house where I have some of my most vivid memories of the good old days. Being so young, ages like 5 to 10, I was impressionable and absolutely fascinated with the older kids, who were at that time, of course, just kids, but to me they were full-fledged adults. They could drive themselves to the rink. Some of them had girlfriends. They could carry these huge hockey bags and tie their own skates without any help. There were some epic characters back then. And I really do think, some of the kids in the old days were a little rougher, they were a little tougher, and they could be a little more mean. Not that you guys aren't tough or great, but there was an element there, and Denny and I had to kind of have each other's back, because there were plenty of examples of kids that said things or did things that cost them. We'll put it that way. There was one thing though that really brings me back, and that is the image of the blowtorch. So aluminum hockey sticks were very popular, and that was such a strong image, and it kind of inspired a respect. And that sound and that smell of like burnt wood and glue still just transports me back to that little shack down by the river. Another little picture, one last one of the old days that I think can't go untold is that of Luverne's only skate sharpening machine. I was glad to see Shane Roberts in the building here today. Marlon Roberts was one of the forefathers of the Luverne hockey program. This is a man who was as close to the persona of like the great white hunter, Manic of the North, as I think you'll ever find today. He's a massive but kind-hearted individual who's tracked and or shot out every North American landman that you could ever imagine, and has the stories and trophies to prove it. He was also an innovator, as we lacked any formal hockey facilities in those days. He not only built a skate sharpener in his basement, but also turned his basement into a pretty legitimate pro shop. You could go over to Marlon's, which for Denny and I was just across the street, and pick up a couple sticks, laces, cups, pucks, shin pads, even breezers. I still remember the crackling sound of Shane Roberts' skates in his strides on the outdoor rink. He always had the sharpest skates in town, and he was a heck of a player. So it's no surprise Shane's son and Marlon's grandson Trey is a standout defenseman here on this year's team. So bringing us a little closer to today, through the 80s and most of the 90s, the popularity of hockey only increased in Luverne. We went to more camps, traveled further and further to find better competition, and ultimately we got an indoor rink. This too was a pretty remarkable thing to see, and I clearly remember tightening bolts with my best friend and teammate Pat Connell and fastening down the coolant tubes with wire twist ties under the rink. Those of us that were there that day are still proud to have had an actual hand in that. By the late 90s, my coaches Tim Connell and Dan Swines were really instrumental in improving the quality of play on the ice, as well as broadening the overall profile and vision for what Luverne hockey could be. The varsity teams were still, however, not affiliated with the state high school league. In fact, my senior year, a season where we won our district for a third consecutive year as junior midget A's, marked the last year Luverne varsity hockey was unaffiliated with the state high school league. So let me say that again. It wasn't until 1998 and 99 season that a varsity team from Luverne ever had any possibility or path to playing in the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament. Up until then, it was truly an impossible dream. But there is a funny thing about dreams, and we still dreamt about playing there, even though we knew it would never happen. And I can guarantee you, every player from the early days who fell in love with the state hockey tournament dreamt of playing in the St. Paul Civic Center with the clear boards. So now here we are, looking at recent years. Things you guys might actually remember. The landmark achievement, of course, in 2014 when the Luverne boys made the state tournament was an unbelievable step in the history of our hockey program. And as a follow-up, just 2 years later, the 2016 girls team earned their first berth into the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament. And I'm sure some of the girls who were on that team are here today, and I think they deserve a round of applause. I think it's also pretty neat that that team was also coached by Phil Paquette, who now with this year's boys win has coached 2 state tournament teams in consecutive years at the state tournament. And I think he deserves a round of applause. So since 2014, you guys had some great teams, and you were disappointed not to win the Section 3A championship, and that's a compliment. You know, you were so close you could taste it, and that's a testament to your ability and to the dedication that you put towards the sport. But it also makes the context and the background of the Luverne hockey program all that much more important. It's important for the players, I think, to understand that this history, because not only because you're an amazing part of it, but because when you're on the precipice of accomplishing something great, which you have been the past 2 years, you couldn't expect to fully understand what this journey was like when it started, especially because it seemed so far off for us at the time, and it was logistically unattainable. And so I think that's an important note. But the thing is you are very fortunate. You are the fortunate few who get to go out and represent so much more than yourselves, and even more than the name on the front of your jersey. You cannot take this as a burden, though, in any way. You only need to embrace it, enjoy this time fully, deeply, and when you stand there in St. Paul on Wednesday and listen to the national anthem, just understand that you're representing hundreds of families, thousands of kitchen table conversations, and millions of miles traveled. But most importantly, when you stand there in red and white, you are the presentation of a once impossible dream held for decades by hundreds of young hockey players from Luverne, Minnesota. Think about that for a second. And I hope you're smiling on the inside when you do. The last message I have is for everyone in this room who does or ever will think of building something but not sure where it will lead. The forefathers of our hockey program couldn't have imagined this, I don't think. And it's remarkable. But I'm a huge benefactor of it, as is this team. And so it's never too early or too late to get yourself accustomed to taking on new challenges. The young students you need to get ready to take challenges, take on new things, bet on yourself, and find out who you can become. When you find that little something that stirs up your imagination, leads you down a path unknown, whether it's hockey, whether it's music, computer science, biology, you have to have the courage to build and to start building in your area of strength, your area of interest, and you too, like this team, will realize things for yourself beyond what you could imagine. Thank you. And to the team, give them all they can handle, boys.
And we're going to leave closing remarks from Coach Phil Paquette.
All right, I'll keep it short, but I just want to thank everyone for their continued support right from the start. I'm pretty grateful and, grateful, I guess is the word, to be part of this community and part of this school. I remember sitting in middle school as we did this for basketball teams and then on to high school as we went on to football tournaments. I'm just so grateful for the support from the school and from the community. It's pretty special what we have, and I know these boys are looking forward to the tournament they brought in this season. Brought it all together in the Section 3A championship, and we're going to go up and give Hermantown all they can handle. Thank you.
Please stand for the school song.